Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from the highest point on Florida State's campus and the hottest room in Seminole sports. You are listening to Tomahawk Talk on WVFS Tallahassee, the voice of Florida State, coming to you live from room 420 inside of Diffenbaugh. Save your jokes at the door. I am your host, Nicholas Carlisle, bringing you the latest, greatest, and Florida Statist in everything sports, or at least as much as we can fit within the hour for people all around the world. Of course, you can find us on Twitter at talk_Tomahawk. Gary is on the Twitter tonight, and you can call into the show at 850-644-1837. Once again, that's 850-644-1837. Welcome to Tomahawk Talk, everybody, and like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick kissing one another in celebration on live television, we're happy that the Super Bowl was over, too. It was just from that angle, but that was a pretty weird picture, wouldn't you say? It could have been worse, but speaking of worse, aren't you glad that we were able to watch Maroon 5's rendition of Magic Mike featuring Travis Scott and Big Boy on stage during halftime?
I would have much rather seen Sweet Victory.
Yeah, Sweet Victory.
Tell you that much.
Much better. Man, that was great. Well, football season is officially over, meaning that all the baseball fans around the world rejoice.
Oh, yeah.
But in all seriousness, the Super Bowl is over, which means full attention turns to basketball and baseball, which is an extremely exciting time around Florida State, especially. We have a great show for you tonight, a lot to chop through. And softball. So let's get everything started. What is a captain without his crew? I am joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Chris Camacho. As a Saints fan, do you feel any sort of vindication with the Rams losing last night?
Well, listen, let me tell you right now.
Listen.
Because I'm also from Los Angeles, so it was not fun seeing another LA team lose to another New England team. But I think all I'm saying is I think it would have been a different Super Bowl had the Saints been in it.
Oh, I think so, too. And joining us tonight, we have the other Luke Hazen. How are you this evening?
Glad to be here, Nick.
Oh, no response to how you're just glad?
I'm ready to talk sports, man. I'm ready to
go. You're just ready to go.
I'm jacked up.
Let's get
to the meat, man.
And making his return to the panel tonight, we have Lucas Vaitia. Welcome. That was perfect pronunciation, right?
Bingo.
It was bingo. Okay, good. I've been practicing that in front of the mirror for the past 20 minutes. Welcome back to Tomahawk Talk. Lucas, how are you doing?
I'm all right. Ready to be here.
All right. I think everybody's ready to get into everything we have on the show for you tonight. Chris Camacho, Lucas Vaitia, Luke Hazen, and once again, I am your host, Nick Carlisle, and we are starting off the top, which if you didn't already know is the segment where I take a look at the past week in sports, rip the top stories, and ask our panel about them, forcing them to come up with the answers off the top of their head at the top of the show. And tonight, it's not the trade that we thought we were going to get at the deadline. Of course, the deadline hasn't passed just yet, but in a blockbuster trade this past week, the New York Knicks traded away star power forward Kristaps Porzingis to the Dallas Mavericks along with Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee, while the Mavericks sent DeAndre Jordan, Dennis Smith Jr., and Wesley Matthews to New York, and I believe there was a draft pick thrown in there somewhere as well. This trade coming after reports that Porzingis was questioning his role in the Knicks organization, and apparently he wanted out. We asked you, the audience, on Twitter who won this trade, and 68% of you said that the Mavericks won the trade, 14% of you said the Knicks won the trade, and 18% said that they both won the trade. So now I ask the panel, what do you all think of this trade, and who won it? Chris?
I really think the Mavs got the better end of the deal here. I mean, you get a guy like Porzingis when he's healthy. I mean, the guy can go off. And also, I don't think the Knicks help their position in terms of trying to get a guy like Anthony Davis over to their side. They're just you said that they also threw in a draft pick as well, right?
My memory serves me that there was a draft pick in the trade. I'm not sure who sent it which way. If somebody wants to do some research on that real quick.
Well, if the Knicks did, this is a team, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure if there was any trade draft picks within that, it would have been going to New York. I think the Dallas Mavericks threw in a pick.
Because they need it. But my point is, the Knicks are a team that needs as much firepower as they can get from their players. Porzingis is still injured,
right?
So
he did practice today, though, and it was two future first round picks.
They've got something in mind for the future, but I think Dallas came out on top with this one.
Luke?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Knicks side on this, Nick, because if you look at the Knicks and the recent history of them, there have been a lot of disgruntled, high-paid veteran star players, Carmelo Anthony, Amari Stoudemire, and I think this kind of gives off a signal that the Knicks are trying to change the culture around their basketball program. Get younger, get healthier. They get back Dennis Smith Jr., who didn't really have a role in that Dallas offense, that whole Dallas team. He and Luka had this whole power struggle going. And I think they initially wanted to draft him back 2 years ago, I think it was. So I think if they can get more players that want to be Knicks, that want to be part of this new culture that they're trying to build, I think it came out great for the Knicks.
Lucas?
I'm going to agree with Christian and say that the Mavs won this trade. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how Porzingis adapts to the Mavs, especially playing with Luka Doncic. That's right there the duo that I'm most excited to see now. Unfortunately, he's not going to be playing this season, so we'll have to wait until next year. I think that this trade, having Porzingis and Doncic on the team, it can definitely make them a contender in the West, especially since they have 2 future first-round picks. If they can get a couple of good guys, then I think we can be seeing resurgence of the Mavs here pretty soon.
I love this trade for the Dallas Mavericks for a couple of reasons. The first of which being, you think of the city of Dallas and you think, well, that's a hot spot, right? A hot, very widely acclaimed city, a nice city to play in.
Some Cowboys there, apparently.
Especially if you're the Dallas Cowboys. For whatever reason, the Dallas Mavericks don't necessarily have that big city, this big town, this big destination kind of feel to it. So the Dallas Mavericks have always had trouble trying to get those big name players, and it doesn't help when the Clippers literally locked DeAndre Jordan in his house the one time that they actually did try to get.
Greatest set on Twitter ever, if you remember that.
But this was a great way to get a nice established player because it hasn't been happening in free agency. I think the last time they went out and spent big money was on Harrison Barnes when he left the Golden State Warriors. I love this trade. I love what Kristaps and Luka are going to be able to do together. I also love how Kristaps is going to be able to learn under Dirk Nowitzki. If you think about a player that Kristaps probably idolizes, models his game after, I mean, Kristaps is really unique by himself.
He's a unicorn.
He's a unicorn. He's got guard skills, and he's really, really tall. But when it comes to the shooting side of things, I don't think that there's anybody else I would want to learn under more than Dirk Nowitzki if I was Kristaps Porzingis. But when you flip it to the other side, the Knicks, I wouldn't be as concerned if it weren't for the recent history with the Knicks and how they've drafted, how they've been run as an organization and a franchise. They passed on Dennis Smith Jr. to draft Frank Ntilikina?
Ntilikina, yeah.
Something like that. And he has not lived up, as a bunch of other draft picks have not lived up for the Knicks. So, it's I guess you could say it's another reset, but, the Knicks are going to keep resetting until they're not resetting. So I do think that it was good to move Kristaps now. You got something for him. He was a little bit disgruntled. You got that out of the way without much of any storm or media publicity other than the actual trade. So I do think both teams won this trade in their own certain ways, but I am really loving the trade on the side of the Dallas Mavericks. So with that being said, that was the Off the Top segment brought to you by me, sponsored by me, issued out by the panel. And we're just going to changed it a little bit up. It's because I didn't have it written.
Credit there.
It's because I didn't have it written down. I'm just kidding.
Okay. But he's not.
Why would I give my panel any credit whatsoever?
What's a captain without his crew?
What's a captain without his crew?
Right
Thanks for that, man.
A captain with a nice ship and nobody else to feed. Moving on. And I think it's only right. And we're gonna get to everything. We're gonna get to softball. We're gonna get to baseball, or not baseball yet, but basketball, men's, women's. But I think it's right that we kind of go after the elephant in the room, Chris. DeAndre Francois. It's been a tough weekend for him. It's been a tough weekend for the football program here at Florida State, as Francois was dismissed from the team Sunday afternoon after reports surfaced that he beat his girlfriend, and they had a bunch of verbal arguments as well. And there was an audio tape, and it did not look good for Francois. And obviously, Taggart said he called him up, and then he dismissed him from the team. But earlier today, the girl, and it's awful that I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head right now, because Diamond posted on, I believe that might have been Instagram or Snapchat. Instagram story that admitting that DeAndre did not hit her, although they did have a bunch of verbal spouts. and she essentially apologized for making it appear that he was physically abusive towards her, and she was telling, I guess, the world that she was very upset by the ending of the relationship, and it's kind of developed into an interesting, awful but interesting story.
No, absolutely. I think, well, unfortunately, this is one of those situations where it's a little too late to apologize because, I mean,
Damage is done.
Even DeAndre's done. There's no way that he's gonna make his way back. I think arguably onto any college football team.
He's entered his name in the transfer portal, so
Okay.
there's still the opportunity out
Yes,
there.
there's
We
the
still don't know.
opportunity. I just don't think that's gonna be one of those questionable calls. If somebody picks him up, because now that story is gonna follow him, And I think regardless of whether the reports are true, it's ruined. I think it's ruined his reputation for the time being.
And just the coincidences of everything, as ESPN reminds me of something on my phone. The coincidences of everything. Florida State has had problems with quarterbacks for the past, I don't know how many years, 7 years or so, a long time. Whether it was Jameis and all the things
just with
that
domestic abuse, not just from
exactly,
quarterbacks,
and
but-
not with just. And you talk about the situation with Josh Ball as well. Florida State has had issues with domestic abuse. DeAndre Johnson hurting that young lady in the bar, and then Dalvin Cook got accused of something and then acquitted, and then of course all the things that Jameis was accused of.
Malik Henry got dismissed from the team for violating team. Now I'm not sure whether it was domestic abuse, but he violated team rules.
Right.
Another case of acting out.
I have zero problem with him getting dismissed, even if the reports are false, because I think Taggart said we're trying to redefine this program and the culture in this program, and as you just mentioned, Florida State has a history and a reputation with this, and I think it's something that Florida State hasn't done in the past. And now my question is, what if last season had gone differently? What if Florida State won 10 games or 11 games, and DeAndre Francois was in the chase for a Heisman? Does that change anything?
To be 100% honest with you, I think with Willie Taggart as the head coach of the Florida State Seminoles, it would not have changed anything. He is dead set on having a culture change with this program, and I think it's really good to see him, take the situation by the horns and dismiss Francois when he needed to. Luke.
Yeah, I want to ask you something, Chris.
Yeah.
Not even talking about last season, we know Taggart was going to roll with Francois on the team through spring, maybe towards the fall. We don't know what happened to him in the fall. I want to ask you, if this tape hadn't come out, would Taggart have even dismissed him? I think this gave Taggart the perfect opportunity to go in and dismiss him. I think Taggart got lucky doing this because
Sure.
I think he stays on the Taggart. I don't know.
Obviously, we're speculating here, but do you think Taggart was looking for a way to get him off the team, and this was just his?
I don't think he was looking for a way to get him off. I think he had to act once this tape came out,
Yeah.
but I don't know that he would be gone even if that happened.
Everything aside, this is really a sad way for DeAndre Francois's career, his legacy at Florida State to end. You talk about the potential that this young man had. You talk about what everybody was expecting from him. He completely destroys his knee, or gets his knee destroyed by the Alabama defensive line in that opening game in 2017, and he comes back and he spends most of the year playing football for Florida State Seminole on his back because the offensive line was so porous that he didn't have much of an opportunity to do anything. He releases an Instagram statement saying, "I'm coming back. I have unfinished business," and now he's just gone. Lucas, is this situation that's developed over the past 24, 48 hours? Is this what you think people are going to remember most about DeAndre Francois?
Absolutely. As most Florida State fans, not all, I'm disappointed but not surprised. This isn't his first incident, with domestic abuse. Of course, he had some problems at the beginning of last year with that. So it's just disappointing. He should have realized that, he had much more to lose. He had already been on the, hot seat for this before. Even if it wasn't him on the tape, like some people had been saying, it's still, he had much more to lose, so there shouldn't have been anything like that.
Yeah, I think disappointing is the right word to use for it, because when I I remember my first impression of DeAndre Francois, as I've mentioned before, was the game in Orlando against Ole Miss. And you think,
course.
wow, you think he's the future quarterback for Florida State, and to think this is the way that he's going to go out
Sad.
in
Just
Florida
after
State
that,
history, it's sad.
after his freshman year, it was just all downhill.
Right.
As important as long as we could talk about the ramifications of the situation and how it affects all parties, we do have to move on to women's basketball. Women's basketball getting a nice 24-point victory over Wake Forest at I believe it was home at the Tucker Center this past Saturday. And this was a game in which the Noles found themselves up by a lot, and that's not something that the Noles could have said a lot about many games this season. Luke, what does this game? What is the thing that you take away most from this game?
Handling business. That's all I'm going to say about a game like this against a 10-12 Wake Forest team, 1-8 in ACC play. Handling business. You go into this game thinking, you look ahead in the schedule. 3 of the next 5 games for the women's team are against top 15 opponents in Syracuse, NC State, and Notre Dame. You need to win games like this if you're going to build momentum towards the tournament time.
Chris, what was the importance of this type of game? We've seen with this women's team this year, we've seen them get blown out. We've seen them lose close games, and we've seen them win close games, comeback victories like against Virginia Tech, I believe the week before. What is the importance of having a game like this where they're comfortably leading throughout the entire contest?
I think it's building confidence. Granted, you're playing against a Wake Forest team that isn't top tier. It's nothing to write home about. But at the same time, you take a look at the shooting percentage for the game. Florida State shot over 50%, and I think if you can instill that level of confidence in your younger players, you look at players like Valencia Myers, she got 24 minutes. The younger players, Courtney Weber got 25 minutes, and that's more than your star freshman in Valencia Myers. I think it's getting them that experience and getting them that comfortability on the court. I think that's what's going to go a long way, especially as Luke mentioned, when you're playing a lot of top tier teams coming up.
And a lot of production off the bench this game. I know that I've said in past shows that when the bench is playing and supporting the starters, just like any good team would, it really makes this young team that much better. But it was really just an all-around great game from Florida State. Gillespie with 22 points. Actually, 4 out of the 5 starters were in double digits for scoring. The only person that wasn't was Weber, who shot 1 from 4 from the field. She did have a couple of rebounds and a steal, but only 2 points to show for it. Just looking at the way that this game turned out, I mean, Wake Forest was out-rebounded, Luke, for only the 4th time so far this season. Do you think that that's something that the Seminoles have been working on just over the course of the season? Because rebounding was something that you can argue was probably one of their weakest aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a game where you can kind of test things out and try to see if your team will respond to this Wake Forest team who had come in rebounding the ball pretty well. You get into these really tense games against better competition. You don't really have time to think, hey, what can we work on? What can we do better? But in a case like this against, a Sunday afternoon against Wake Forest, you kind of look at this as a game where you can improve on things. And I think Florida State did a great job rebounding.
And, of course, they do have a pretty tough week ahead of them, and this is probably you take a look at this schedule, and it kind of makes you pee your pants a little bit. They did play Louisville a couple weeks ago.
We got a bathroom.
We do have a
way.
bathroom just
Nick,
outside the studio.
Yes, gross.
I mean, it puts some sweat down the side of your face. Of course, the last time that Florida State faced a ranked team, that was number 4 ranked Louisville, and that was it was a 19-point loss. But it was the experience that I think Florida State needed at the time, and I think they've definitely shown with the past couple of games that they played against Virginia, the comeback win versus Virginia Tech, handling business versus Miami, and then this double-digit win against Wake Forest. Lucas, it's really shown that this team is learning what they need to, especially being so young.
Absolutely, they're improving on all aspects of their game. Like, this game showed it was an absolute domination, so it really gets me excited to see just what they'll be able to do against these, more top-ranked teams going to the tournament.
And those top-ranked teams heading into the tournament, 2 of them this week, as I began to say, the North Carolina State Wolfpack losing their first game this past week. They were the last unbeaten team, I believe. So it's going to be a very tough contest for Florida State. It is going to be at the Tucker Center. It's going to be on February the 7th, so that is Thursday. right?
What day did you say?
That's the 7th.
Yes.
Seventh
That
is
was
Thursday.
Okay, so
yes.
I do my math
Be
correctly.
Thursday.
English majors can do math. You've heard it here first on Tomahawk Talk.
I do want to add for this team. I think something else that we saw from this Wake Forest game is I think finding their comfortability and accepting that Florida State is just not a 3-point team. You don't have Amani Wright anymore. You don't have AJ Alex, who were great perimeter shooters. On the season, Florida State women's they're shooting 26.5%, and in this game
28. Right, 28%. About
28%.
average, yeah.
Not great, but they had 50 points in the paint. 50 points in the paint. And that significantly outscores Wake Forest by 20 points. And I think just accepting and finding those shots, driving it hard to the rim and finding those points. And I think that's how you can maintain that level of confidence, as I mentioned before, going forward.
Right, shooting 57% in the second half, despite going 1 for 8 from 3-point range, as you said,
Right.
Chris, just bolsters your argument. This team is figuring things out slowly, and like I said, they do have the NC State Wolfpack, and then the defending champions, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, this week as well. Luke and Lucas, you can chime in as well. It's hard to say that they're going to win this game, because in reality, this is a young team. I've said it before, and they're probably not going to win these games, but maybe they'll surprise us. What are you looking for this team to do versus both those teams this week?
I'm actually going to go outside the box here. I'm looking at how this team is going to play as a whole over the next stretch of games,
Sure.
rather than just these 2 games.
Sure.
The disparity between teams in college basketball is a lot more than in men's college basketball, I feel like. And so you get 2 top teams like NC State, like Notre Dame. The Notre Dame game is on the road. I don't see us winning that game by any stretch of the imagination. But it's going to be how this women's team responds if they happen to lose those 2 games. Then you get games against Clemson, Pitt, and Miami after the Notre Dame game. I'm going to be looking to see how these guys or how these girls play in those games rather than how they play in the next 2 games.
What about you, Lucas?
Yeah, I'm really looking more at these 2 next games, the ranked teams. I want to see how they respond under pressure. Of course, they're playing these tough teams. If we see a Florida State team like we saw against Wake Forest, then we will be in for an interesting 2 games.
Interesting 2 games indeed. So I believe the 24th ranked Seminoles, I believe they stayed at 24 in the AP and the coaches. Feel free to correct me if that is not so. But it's definitely going to be a very challenging week for these young women. It's going to be a week of growth, and I expect Coach Semro to coach these young ladies the same way that they coached, that she coached them when they faced Louisville a couple of weeks before. So we're gonna be separated by the break here, but diving into men's basketball, of course, game versus Georgia Tech this weekend. It was a game of kind of ups and downs, you could say. It was an awful finish. It was an awful finish. It was an ugly win, but there are things that you could take a look at and see, some positivity coming out of that. One of those is in opposition to the way that last week went. One of those things that you cannot be positive about was MJ Walker falling back into his slump. Chris, what is he going to have to do to break out of this? Is it just a keep shooting kind of thing, or is something else going to need to be tweaked?
What is it that Steph Curry does? Doesn't he take like 1,000?
Well, Steph Curry is
if he could
not
follow
Curry's
the
a little
Steph
different than
Curry
MJ Walker.
regimen, that would be great. But as you said, he probably can't do something like that. Honestly, it's with a guy like MJ Walker. It's what a lot of young guys fall into. It's this
frustrating, man.
It's
Seems like it's more
really
mental than
frustrating.
anything else.
But he's a sophomore. He's gonna have these really inconsistent on and off games. I think you give him another year, maybe he'll find that stretch, that his stride, and find that consistent stride. But for now, it's unless he continues practicing, maybe changes his shot. Honestly, it's hard for me to prescribe as a 3-point specialist myself. Right. It's hard for me to prescribe something like that.
Well, on the flip side, a positive that you could definitely take away from this game is number 41. I mean 14. Terrence Mann, you're shredding his jersey for the third time. What's the over under and how many times he's going to shred his jersey for the rest of the season? That's not an actual question. Don't answer that.
I was about to answer.
I know. That's why I told you not to. But
Everyone gets closer to the mic.
you know, he's had one of his more well-rounded games than he has in a long time. 12 points, 7 rebounds, and assists, a steal, and there's 3 back-to-back dunks that really kind of. I don't want to say carried Florida State the rest of the way, but it definitely gave them that I guess that
cushion.
That cushion. So just looking at it, Cabangeli had another fantastic game.
Oh yeah,
as he does.
As he is prone to do. Kofor is still having a hard time coming back from everything. This was a game that Florida State I felt could have easily lost if this was not Georgia Tech, and if Georgia Tech definitely shot the ball better. I'm gonna scroll over and look at their shooting percentage.
28%.
20. Oh my! There's a lot of double digits and misses here.
Yeah.
3 for 13 for DeVoe, and then
Jose Alvarado 0 for 10.
Over 10, and he fouled out, I believe, in 24 minutes.
He was in foul trouble the whole game. Yeah.
So my question to you, and you can chime in on this too, Lucas, is this a game in which you say, okay, well, it's a game that Florida State would have lost if the Yellow Jackets had any kind of form of offense anywhere, or do you take this as, well, this was a tough, gritty win that Florida State grinded out?
Can I say both? Because it's kind of true. It's a win that you need to have, especially with the schedule coming up for FSU. But at the same time, they would have lost this game if they were playing any sort of like level opponent or superior opponent, like Syracuse tonight.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Georgia Tech gave FSU every reason to lose this game, and yet Florida State still found a way. So I can't complain about a win, but at the same time, it's a little bit concerning.
Lucas?
Yeah. Now, I wasn't able to watch this game, unfortunately, since I was at work, so I was preoccupied. But just looking at these stats here, you go 4 for 16 on 3. You have a 35% field goal. Yeah, it just seems like if Georgia Tech had their offense together, this would have been a loss.
And Georgia Tech has been struggling on offense pretty much the entire season. So I guess that's a question that we'll come back to on the other side of the break. When we do come back, we will have the time-honored tradition, the Seminole segment with Jacob Hain. You're listening to Tomahawk Talk on WVFS Tallahassee, the voice of Florida State.
The number 20 women's Seminoles golf team stands in 12th place following round 1 play at the Northrop Grumman Regional Challenge. This is the first competition of the spring season for Florida State. With 36 holes left to play, freshmen Frida Kinholt and Puckling Thompson are tied for 17th in the individual standings. Number 12 UCLA holds first place in the team standings thus far. The first round was delayed due to rainy conditions, also taking away Florida State's pre-match practice round. Round 2 teed off for the Noles this afternoon at 12:30 Eastern from Palos Verdes, California. The Noles take on Alabama, Washington, and Arizona State in Round 2. In women's basketball news, Florida State beat Wake Forest in dominating fashion, beating the Demon Deacons 85-61. The 24th ranked Noles shot 57.4% from the field, a new season high. Junior forward Kaya Gillespie led the way in scoring, dropping 22 points on 9 of 15 shooting. Freshman guard Morgan Jones was the player of the game, however, providing a spark off the bench with 12 points and 7 rebounds, both career highs. Scoring came from all over the court, with 5 Seminoles registering double figures. The win improves the Noles' record to 19-3, 7-2 in the ACC. Florida State faces a big test in their next game against number 7 North Carolina State. Action tips off this Thursday at 7 p.m. in the Tucker Center. That's all for the Seminole segment. Back to the guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for that Seminole segment, the time-honored tradition, and a very favorite one here at the station. On the other side of the break, we were talking about a little bit of men's basketball and continuing that conversation, looking ahead. The Noles, like the women, or the Noles, but the men, like the women, have an equally difficult week. It's just a very difficult week for basketball for both men and women, as the men face Syracuse tomorrow night, and then they face number 16 ranked Louisville Cardinals this weekend. And they're actually not favored in the Syracuse game by a lot. 70.9% in the it's not giving me the line, which is weird. Maybe I'll just have to refresh the page. But Florida State not favored in the Syracuse game. If you remember, Syracuse knocked off Duke just days after Florida State lost to Duke in heartbreaking fashion. We asked this question, Chris, about the women and what they have to do to win these games this week. What are the men going to have to do?
I think there's going to need to be somebody that steps up, in a sense, and have somebody make more than 3 baskets. Because actually, I was looking back at the Georgia Tech score sheet. Nobody made more than 3 baskets and more than 3 field goals. So I think finding that offensive stability. Luke, I know you and I were talking at the break, talking about how Terrence Mann needs to step up, in along with Trent Forrest.
Yeah. So that was the one positive that you could take away from the Georgia Tech game, was that Terrence Mann did have a pretty good game, and I think that's especially important heading into these next 2 games, because Trent Forrest was supposed to be the leader of this team. We saw what he did in the tournament last year. We thought he was going to be the leader, and he still might be the leader, but he's not producing because he's hurt right now. And so I think someone is going to have an out-of-body experience over these next 2 games, because Syracuse and Louisville played some of the toughest defense in the ACC.
And you can't rely on Cabangeli every single game.
Exactly.
And you also can't rely on 2 starters shooting a combined 3 for 23 from the field. And the line, as my lovely assistant Gary held up his phone. The line is 2.5 towards Syracuse. Lucas, you said Luke said that somebody's going to need to have an out of body experience. If it's not Terrence Mann, if it's not Cabangeli, who in your mind is that person going to be?
You know what? I'm looking at seeing what Phil Kofer does, because he's the kind of guy that he shows that he can make big plays during big games. All right, he steps up, he can do it, so I'm going to be looking at him these next couple of games.
And I take a look at these couple of games, guys, and I see what Syracuse has done. They're not ranked, but I mean, if you look at what they've been able to do, not only in the conference, they should be. They're probably like knocking on the door of the outside of the
Carrier
bubble.
Dome too. That thing counts more than any other statistic you can throw out there. It's at Syracuse.
Right.
And it's actually it's a pretty interesting story too, because you have Florida State, who is not a good road team, and emphasis, and I could put bold italics and double underline, not a good road team. But then you have Syracuse, who isn't the best home team. So, Chris, if you had to take a guess right now, which one of those is going to be the dominant, I guess, gene of this game?
Which one's going to give away? Yeah.
Which one is Florida State's lackluster performances on the road going to dominate this game, or is Syracuse going to be vulnerable at home once again?
Well, I think Florida State, a win at Miami doesn't say much, but I think they've. Man, I don't know. That's such a hard question. It really
They've shown that they can get it done on the road.
Because the thing is, when you're playing in a place like the Carrier Dome, a place that and forget about talking about football. We won't even talk about Florida State football
Going up
at the
in
Carrier
football,
Dome.
God.
But just that environment can get so rambunctious. It can get as loud as it is here at the Tucker Center sometimes. You just hope it doesn't rattle someone like an MJ Walker, like a Raekwon Gray, like a Raekwon Gray, rather. Honestly, I can see the Carrier Dome taking over here.
I am more worried about the Syracuse game than I am worried about the Louisville game.
Wow.
I think that Syracuse, I already said that they weren't ranked, but I think they definitely deserve, especially with the victories that they have. And this team, to be honest, if I'm a Florida State fan, it scares me a little bit. The fact that Florida State isn't good on the road, the fact that they're having to play in the Carrier Dome, the things that we've been talking about for the past 5 minutes, this game scares me more than Louisville. I think Louisville is going to end up being more of an important game because of the number surrounding it. It's a number 16 ranked team in the nation at this point. It's definitely a team that has surprised a lot of people this year thus far, but I'm still more worried about Syracuse, Luke.
Yeah, and NC State showed over the weekend, if you play great defense against Louisville, then you have a shot to win. They played great defense the whole game against Louisville, and earlier in the year, Louisville went to the Dean Dome and beat North Carolina. This time, exact reverse of that. North Carolina played great defense, basically stymied Louisville the whole game, and they were able to come up with a victory.
And then that Louisville matchup, it's 58.5% in the favor of Florida, which is Florida State's actually favored in this game, it looks like.
Always better to be at home. Yeah.
Always, well, it is always better to be at home. Gary, my trusty assistant, you want to pull up the line for Louisville for me? Thank you. Because for whatever reason, ESPN is refusing to show me. Thanks, ESPN.
They don't want to help your gambling problem.
Yeah.
Gary's your bookie.
Well, I know this is a rabbit's trail, but there's somebody that won $100,000 on the bet that the Rams wouldn't score more than 3 points.
Wow.
I saw that today.
I bet the
And I'm
over.
I'm sure they're glad their line missed that last field goal.
I heard in class that somebody lost, what was it?
3.5 million or something like that. Yeah.
I heard 2.7 million on the over/under on this game.
Well, if this whole sports journalism doesn't work out for me, I'm taking to the gambler. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do
It's a
that.
deep hole there, Nick.
3.8 million.
That
3.8 million, you said?
that
Sir.
Wow.
in all seriousness, that ruins life. I'm not going to do that. But look
you
at
have a problem. There's a number.
here's a number you can
Reach
call.
out to 1-800.
Yeah, what's the you can call us here at 850-644-1837 for that problem. There's no line yet. Thanks, Gary. Too far out.
Thank you.
What are we
for
doing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Gary is standing by the phones.
Gary is ready with anticipation. But all right, I think it's about time. Looking at these two games, what are we thinking, guys? Is 1-1 the ceiling for this week, or do you think that Florida State has a legitimate chance to beat both these teams, Chris?
I think they have a legitimate chance.
Well, there's always a
Yeah.
chance, but in the
Right.
in the realm of possibility, that's something reasonable.
Yeah, I don't see 2-0 being unreasonable. However, what is the reality of the situation? I could see them going 1-1. I don't think they win against Syracuse, but I think they win a close game against Louisville at home.
Right there with Chris, yeah. The Louisville game is much, much more important than a road game up at Syracuse. So, yeah, they're going to go 1-1.
Lucas?
I'm going to agree completely, too. I think Syracuse, that game worries me more. They seem to be that dark horse team that, for some reason, they can beat, these big names. So I think that we can definitely get the win against Louisville, I believe. But Syracuse, I'm not so sure about.
And I think that it's to the benefit of Florida State this time around that there's no real trap game. If you drop the game to Syracuse on Tuesday night, you immediately have to buckle back in and go and face Louisville this weekend. And I think that's going to be to the benefit of Florida State if they do drop this game. There's no we have a couple games to pick ourselves back up, and then you end up losing those games
There's no pit,
like
yeah.
we saw with Pittsburgh. So it's
Boston College.
and Boston College.
Jeez.
We're
It's
not a road team.
not a road team. Not a road team indeed. Bold it, italicize it, underline it twice, circle it in red pen. Not a good road team.
You'd be a great editor, Nick. I'd love to see your edits.
Well, it's I have a color pencil set.
Okay.
Not really. Moving on. Florida State softball starts this Friday.
Woo! Let's go, baby.
Defending national champions start up the season this weekend. Just I guess an opening question. What are you looking to happen this season? What's the ceiling?
Perfect season. They return national champions again. Cocha Alameda all the way. Best coach in the ACC and in the sorry, I just went on.
Wow, you're a jerk.
No,
It's a take right there.
I think as a Florida State fan, you expect them to go as far as they did last year. Granted, you don't have Jesse Warren anymore, which is that's a big piece that you're missing right there. because Jesse Warren was something special.
You do, however, have 5 preseason All-American, or excuse me,
absolutely.
All-ACC.
Right.
Zoe Cassis, Carson Gordon, Megan King, Anna Shelnut, Sydney Sherrill.
Sydney Sherrill is a huge return.
Yeah, and I want to say, yeah, it's going to be hard to replace Jesse Warren, but it makes it a lot easier when Sydney Sherrill is moving to third base
No,
as a
absolutely.
preseason All-American.
I'm not saying that the success of this team lives and dies by Jesse Warren. This team is so ridiculously deep.
We're turning 16 players from that national
Absolutely.
championship team. Yeah.
And the was she the ACC Freshman of the Year or just the overall Sydney Sherrill? I think she was just the overall NCAA Freshman of the Year.
I'll have to check that, but yeah.
Gary. Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
See, Gary just knows what I want. Lucas. Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
he does.
All right. There was some hooting and hollering in the peanut gallery of the Tomahawk Talk studio.
Oh, two of them.
Lucas, do you echo this positivity? I mean, of course, 16 returning players from the national championship winning team last season. Do you still hold that positivity? Are you right up there? Is this title or bust again for Florida State?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely coming in ranked number 1. I'm definitely looking for the repeat.
You're definitely looking for the repeat, and of course, they do start this weekend. Luke.
Yeah, I was going to say the pressure's on because the last 2 teams before Florida State to win the national championship, Florida and Oklahoma, they both repeated the year after they won it the first time. So the precedent's there. It's going to be up to Florida State to kind of fill the shoes.
Well, and I think the spotlight really is on Florida State because I was looking at the 25, the AP top 25. Florida State's the only ACC team in the top 25. They're also the first ACC team to ever win the softball national
The
championship.
pathway's there, yeah.
Absolutely,
Exactly.
they're pioneers in their own right. And also, after further review, the play has been confirmed. And
So it's player of the year, not just freshman.
No, she ACC Freshman of the Year.
Okay, there we go.
The play has been confirmed.
Yeah.
The call stands on the field.
You can challenge that?
Proceed
refs.
to boo.
when your Tomahawk Talk replay booth is better than the NFL's. No, shots
Low-hanging
fired.
fruit.
Shots fired. Florida State does face UNC Wilmington 3 p.m. and then of course as tradition a couple games Iowa State and then UNC Greensboro.
Big tournament next weekend.
Big tournament as well. Then on Saturday Iowa State and UNC Wilmington they switched. I'm sorry, the Iowa State is on the Saturday. UNC Wilmington is on the Sunday. And then February 15th, an early test in Oklahoma, Chris.
Oh, absolutely. Oklahoma, the number 4 team in the country in preseason, according to preseason rankings. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm looking forward to because they lost. Oh my God, Megan King's counterpart. I was gonna focus on Megan King anyway, but. No, I think Megan King is a huge return. You look at what she did not only during the regular season, but her postseason repertoire was just incredible. I think that's probably the biggest arm you have coming back, the strongest arm you have coming back. That's going to be Megan King is going to be the woman to go to, especially against a team like Oklahoma. Granted, assuming she hasn't been used up before.
So the general consensus on Tomahawk Talk tonight, the panel saying Florida State is looking to buy one get one free in terms of championships. Lots of fantastic.
Oh, it will not be
yeah.
free. I never think the what is it called, the return.
Well, for the sake of the nice segue, Chris,
Yeah,
could you
okay.
just give it to me?
All right, I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Bogo.
Lots of fantastic talent coming back for the softball team this year, defending national champions. They have not necessarily the hardest road back that they have, especially during the regular season, but
It's not about that. It's about the tournament.
It's
The tournament's a grind of its own.
it's absolutely about the tournament. But in terms of the regular season, it's going to be an exciting season of softball, and I can't wait to watch. This is going to be a very, very fun team to see. I want to say develop, but I mean, you have so many returning players. How much more can you develop in that sense? So definitely looking for softball again. First game is the 8th. That's this Friday, 3 p.m. And then it's back-to-back UNC Wilmington and then Iowa State at 5:30. So, save. I want to say the best for last, but this really probably wasn't the best that we probably could have saved. There was a Super Bowl last night.
There was.
I think so. Is it tonight? Is the Super Bowl tonight? I don't know.
It's never on a Monday, Nick. Are you silly? He's
I don't know.
silly.
Adam Levine took his shirt off, and then
Oh, I saw that.
everything.
It's the only part I tuned in for.
Everything else is just kind of blank after that.
Come on,
Christ.
man.
Chris, there's always talk, and it's been the sports story of the NFL this year for the AFC. There's always talk that the Patriots are going away. This is the end of the dynasty, and here they are once again, Super Bowl champions. How many? I want to ask you, how many years do you think they have left? But I mean, we were saying 2 years
Doesn't
ago.
matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But is this going to
Is
be?
this the final ring?
Is this the going off into the sunset?
Well. Tom Brady now has all 6 Infinity Stones. So with one snap, he can eliminate half the league.
That was good. That was a good Avengers trailer during the Super Bowl too. I like that.
Yes. Is this the final one? I have to say, as much not a fan. I totally butchered my English there. I'm not a fan of the Patriots. However, I think it will be interesting seeing them pursue history next year if they can keep the consistency. If, as Gary's tweet did not age well from last year, if he truly is not over the hill, if they can go for a 7th Super Bowl ring, I think that's going to be an interesting playoff run to watch. Will they get it? Honestly, I can't tell you, because if Drew Brees can come back, and I hope he does, because I really think they should have had it this year. I think it's going to be an interesting playoff run next year.
Just let it go, Chris.
I can't.
Just
Neither
let it
can
go.
New Orleans. No, honestly, I think the whole thing. Anyway, the whole New Orleans thing is another thing.
Yeah. Anyways, Luke, one of the big stories for the Rams, the past couple of the NFC Championship game, and of course the Super Bowl, was how underutilized Todd Gurley was. Now, I mean, there was talks that he has some injuries with him. If Todd Gurley were given more touches, maybe if the game plan was a little bit more centered around Todd Gurley, and they even said that the game plan was more Todd Gurley centric, and it just didn't materialize that way for whatever reason.
Situationally, it just never made the playbook,
So my question to you, if Gurley was getting more touches, if this game was managed better by Sean McVay, would the outcome would it have been different?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
But I mean in terms of the win and the win and the loss.
Well, the game was tied at 3 heading into the 4th quarter. You can't say definitely that the Patriots were going to win no matter how Todd Gurley was utilized. A player here or there that's drawn up for Todd Gurley could change the outcome of the game, and we just never got to see it. I think McVay had a subpar game. He said it after the game. He felt numb. He got out-coached by the greatest of all time, and there's no shame in doing that.
Yeah, Luke. The fact that he said that, Lucas, what's your take on him saying, "Look, I just got plain out coached tonight. A lot of this is my fault."
I mean, it's completely true. Like, you have, what most people consider the best running back in the NFL, and you don't have one single snap in the red zone. There's no reason for that. Gurley was just completely underutilized. That's all there is to it.
Completely underutilized. Luke.
Does this change how we think of Goff, though? I mean,
No.
No.
I'm going to say no. Dude, he's the youngest quarterback to ever play. To say that he had nerves, I think, might be an understatement.
Yeah.
Performing at the highest stage you could possibly perform. Granted, you should, if you were able to make it all the way to the Super Bowl, you should be playing at a higher level. He's a kid, man. I don't know.
We're kids.
We
say
say there's always room for improvement, though they might be back here next year.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember in the NBA looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder thinking, hey, they can still improve. They'll be right back here next year. Never happened. My dad grew up with Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills saying, hey, they're going to win it next year. There's always next year. And it never popped up. So I don't know. I have concerns about Goff and how high is his ceiling.
I really don't. I'm not as concerned about Goff as you are, Luke. I think that he was definitely rattled. I think nerves were definitely a factor. He did have some good throws. It's not like he had an absolutely atrocious game, and you could definitely pinpoint, with exception to the interception that was thrown up like a dead duck that he shouldn't have
I think
thrown.
he got hit on that play, if I'm not mistaken.
I definitely don't think Goff had a great game. By this was not.
There were opportunities. Two throws
Yeah.
to Cooks that could have been catches.
Absolutely. He underthrew and overthrew a lot of guys that went deep. This was not Jared Goff's best game. And honestly, nearing the end of the season, I don't think he was performing the same way that he had been performing at the beginning of the season. So yes, I think there are definitely Jared Goff concerns. I do not think this Super Bowl is the reason to
So
be
you think it's
concerned.
bigger than just the Super Bowl?
I think it's
I
bigger
can
than-
I can understand.
yes.
Yeah.
Let me clarify my statement, because you ask us, well, does this change the way that you feel about Goff? And I say no. That's not me saying, well, Goff is this fantastic quarterback and, he just had a bad game. No, to me, Jared Goff is the epitome of an above-average quarterback that has a lot of help. He's a very young quarterback. He has a lot of time to improve. I mean, this is only his second or third? I think it's
Second.
it's his third season.
Second full season, yeah.
Second full season, third.
We don't count the Jeff Fisher year.
completely forget about the Jeff Fisher year. No,
It's okay. So do the Rams fans.
yeah. If the Rams fans can forget Jeff Fisher, the Saints fans can forget the blown call. Maybe, I don't know. That didn't get a rise out of Chris like I thought it would.
No, it didn't.
Unfortunately. But back to the point. Look, I'm taking a look at Jared Goff and I'm saying, well, look, he's a good quarterback. Am I going to take him over a lot of quarterbacks in the league? Absolutely. I'm going to take Jared Goff over a guy like Kirk Cousins any day of the week. Kirk Cousins is that money guy. You get what you pay for. You pay a little bit too much. But, Jared Goff is that above average quarterback that's going to get a lot of help. He had a lot of help with Gurley. He had a lot of help with the defense that ended up they did play a fantastic game in the Super Bowl. They were kind of lopsided on the other side of the season. But, more to my point again, I'm not concerned about Goff because my opinion of him hasn't changed. And, he's just that above average quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I'll say about Goff is that as the season went on, teams stopped biting on the play action. The Rams stopped running as much because Gurley got hurt, and teams stopped biting on the play action, and Goff was exposed then. So I think there's definitely going to be some improvement needed from him and some improvement needed from McVay in retooling the offense to not rely so much on play action heading into next year if they want to get back to this point, which I think they can. Now, projecting forward, they're going to be in cap hell soon, but for just projecting next year, they can get back, but there's going to need some adjustments.
Need some adjustments somewhere, somehow. I mean, it's a little bit too early to say where everybody is going to be in
Saints
the
Super
NFL.
Bowl
Vegas
champions next
Vegas
year.
is already
No.
Vegas already knows where.
Vegas already knows. Just don't lose. How much did he lose, Lucas?
3.8.
3.8 million.
Jesus.
Sheesh.
That's a couple more digits above
We'll see,
my
but
pay
I think
grade.
this is the same guy who
Yeah.
also won a lot of money on the Astros.
It was like 20 million, I believe.
20 million on the
So-
Astros, and also on there was another major team. I don't.
Hmm.
Oh, the Eagles. It was the Eagles last year.
You're right, yeah.
So off
So he
year.
just
a wash.
So, yeah,
year.
he's
It was
still
just
all
an
right for
off
now.
year.
Off year. Chris, we said we were gonna throw it in if we had time. Talk a little bit baseball. Talk about Bryce Harper, and I guess the MLB as a whole. It's kind of been a slow free agency thus far.
Absolutely.
It's been extremely
Underwhelming.
slow.
Underwhelming is a
A
good
bunch
word.
of other adjectives to say. Not much has happened, but Tony Romo predicted that the Lord of Tony
Speaking
Romo.
of underwhelming, I didn't get a whole lot from Tony Romo last night. I was disappointed.
Well,
It
He
a
was
pretty
happy
boring
to be
game.
there, and I
what
was
was his
happy
prediction?
for him.
yes,
That's true.
When if you know what his pregame prediction was?
like 28, 27, something like that.
Patriots?
I don't know. I'm not Tony
Did he
Romo.
make a pregame prediction?
I don't know. I'm asking you guys.
I
I'm
don't know.
down.
He said 10-3.
10
Or no, he said 3-0 at the half, actually.
3-0. Okay. Well, look. It was 3-0 at a half. I wasn't exactly paying that much attention. Brutally honest. But
He
back
was
to
looking
the
at the
point.
transcript.
Bryce Harper.
Bryce
Bryce
Harper.
Harper.
Bryce
Yeah.
Harper. Chris, what's gonna happen?
Where's Bryce Harper?
Where is he going? Is it gonna
It's
happen
so
anytime
hard.
soon?
Because I think last week there was, I don't know if it was Thursday or Wednesday. We were ESPN was going crazy. They're like, Bryce Harper is gonna announce where
The Phillies.
He's signing with the Phillies today.
And I'm just like, yeah, that's my heart beating, by the way.
Oh,
nice sound effect.
It might have
Thank
sounded
you,
like
that was
something
good.
else.
Our
yeah.
human soundboard over here.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, as a Marlins fan, I was just like,
I mean, to see him, I think the Phillies are going to be dangerous this year. Oh, well, just the NL East in general.
they woke up feeling dangerous.
Yes, they did. But I think I can see Bryce Harper in a Phillies uniform. Are the Padres also in on him?
I think
as
so.
well. Is that correct?
Here's a hot take. Bryce Harper might be a better fit with the White Sox or the Padres than he would be with a contender. Now, a contender might be better with him, but he might be a better fit for those franchises than, say, the Phillies.
If he goes with the Padres, look out for the Padres too. I think they're a sleeper team that's coming up. Maybe not this year.
They have. I forget the stat exactly, but they have a fair percentage of top 100
Their
prospects.
farm system is loaded.
Farm system
Loaded.
is that's what I'm saying. Look out for them in the coming seasons, competing in the NL West. The Diamondbacks have dropped off.
Dodgers are always going to be there.
I think the Dodgers are always. Again, I'm always hoping for
This
another
is coming from a
National
Dodger
League
fan.
West.
Be warned.
But at the same, after 6 seasons, I mean, you can only hope that can stay consistent for so long. Honestly, the only other top contender in the NL West are the Rockies. They're looking scary too. I can see the Padres as a potential 3 spot in the NL West this coming season, and if they land Bryce Harper, I'll check that box.
And over here, Gary is just. I can see Gary in Jeets We Trust. Well,
Well, I'm talking about the Rockies. The Rockies lost Ottavino and Mayhew.
Regression to the mean. I'm with Gary on this. I don't think the Rockies are nearly as good as they were last year.
well. With that all being said,
Then give it to the Dodgers.
We've answered the question without answering the question because we don't know what's going to happen, just like you. Thank you so much for tuning into Tomahawk Talk. This even news release is up next. We are not going to be on the air next week as there is an event, but we will be back on the air 2 weeks from now. But don't worry, we're going to make up from lost time somehow. We have something special planned. We just can't tell you exactly what it is yet. We're not going to see you, so I hope you have a nice Valentine's Day. Hope you kiss somebody. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick already have. I'm not going to let that go. Thank you all so much for listening, for tuning in. New releases up next. You're listening to Tomahawk Talk on WVFS Tallahassee, the voice of Florida State.